Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 49 of Blender Master Course Geometry Nodes Part 2 of creating a sci-fi portal scene. In the previous chapter, we begin with the creation of the sci-fi portal scene, and in this chapter, we'll be learning about all these topics in complete detail and we'll also continue with the scene. And for those of you who are new to this course, you can check out the previous chapters from the link of the playlist given in the pinned comment. And the first thing that we are going to do today is to give some basic material to this portal. So to create the material, go to the material properties and click on the new button. Also, switch to the shader editor from here, and to view only the portal in the 3D viewport, press the / button. Let's also add a light in the scene, so press Shift+A, go to light and select the sunlight. Let's move it in the Z axis like this. Press R to rotate the light and rotate it like this. Also, let's increase the strength of light to something like 3 or 4. And now let's create the material. So I'll select the portal, then in the shader editor, let's add the noise texture. So press Shift+A, go to texture and select the noise texture. Place it over here. Press Ctrl+T to connect it to the texture coordinate and the mapping node. Now just like always, take the object socket and connect it to the vector. Now I'll connect the factor socket of the noise texture to the base color in the principal BSTF, and for the colors, let's add the color ramp. So press Shift+A, go to converter and select the color ramp, place it over here. Now I'll select this white pointer and change the color to the purple color. Let's also reduce the brightness, and this is how it looks now. Let's also do some changes in the noise texture. So let's increase the detailing to 15. Let's also increase the scale value to something like 12 or 15. Then in the principal BSTF, let's reduce the roughness to something like 0.1 in order to add some reflection to it. Now to view the rest of the objects, press the / button again, and this is how our scene looks now. Let's go to the solid mode. Now moving ahead, the first topic for today's chapter is understanding the face neighbors node. So for this, let's add a plane in the scene by pressing Shift+A, then in the mesh, select the plane. Let's move it in the x-axis over here. Now tab into the edit mode, press A to select everything, and to subdivide, right click and select the subdivide option. Let's increase the number of cuts to a value of 3. Let's also scale it up, and with this we have a subdivided plane in the scene. Now let's come out of the edit mode. Now let's open the geometry nodes editor from here and click on the new button. To understand the face neighbors node, I'll first add the extrude mesh node here. So press Shift+A, go to mesh, then in the operations, select the extrude mesh node. Let's place it over here. Now to add the face neighbor node, press Shift+A, then go to mesh, and in the read category, select the face neighbors node. We'll place it over here. Now we can connect this face neighbors node to the extrude mesh in order to extrude only some particular faces. Like we have two sockets, the vertex count and the face count, and so if I need that only those particular faces should get extruded who are having a particular number of vertices or faces neighboring that face, then for this we can use this node. To connect it to the extrude mesh node, let's also add the compare node in between. So press Shift+A again, go to utilities, and in the math category, select the compare node. Place it over here. Since the vertex and the face count is an integer value, so I'll change the input type to integer. Then to set a value equal to the vertex count or the face count, I'll change the operation from greater than to equal. And now if I connect the vertex count to the value A and the result socket to the selection in the extrude mesh node, then now you can see here that no extrusion is being applied to any of the faces. And that's because due to the face neighbors node, the extrusion will get applied only to that particular face which is having the number of vertices around it equal to the value of B, which is 0. So if I tab into the edit mode, press 1 for the vertex select, then now you can see that each of these faces is having 4 vertices surrounding it. So in order to extrude these faces, I need to change the value of B to 4, and with this, all of the faces are now getting extruded. Let's understand it with the help of one more example. So I'll change the value of B back to 0, then I'll select these two vertices over here, and if I right click and select subdivide, and now we have this one extra vertex added in between these two vertices. Also, this particular face is now having 5 vertices surrounding it, while the rest of them are still having 4 adjacent vertices. So now if I go to the compare node and increase the value of B to 4, then you can see that all of these faces except this one will get extruded, and if I change the value of B to 5, then in this case only this particular face will get extruded. Now the next socket that you have here is the face count, and if I connect this socket to the value A and change the value of B to 1, then now nothing will get extruded, and that's because by using the face count node, the comparison is made on the basis of the number of faces surrounding a particular face. For example, this selected face has exactly 2 faces adjacent to it. One is this face and the second one is this face. Similarly, this thing is true for all of these corner faces because each one of them has exactly 2 faces neighboring it. As a result, if I go to the compare node and increase the value of B from 1 to 2, then now now the extrusion will get applied to only these corner faces. Then if I select this face, then this one has 3 faces surrounding it. The first face is over here, the second face is this one, and the third face is this face. So in simple words, you simply need to check the number of faces that are adjusted to a particular face with the help of the edge. And just like this face, all of these faces that are present on the sides but are not the corner faces are having a face count equal to 3. So if I change the value of B in the compare node to 3, then in this case, all of these faces will get extruded. And so this is the use of the face neighbors node. Now just like the face neighbors node, we also have a vertex neighbors node. To add it over here, first I'll delete this node by pressing X. Then to add the vertex neighbors node, press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the read category, here we have the vertex neighbors node. Let's place it over here, and just like the face neighbors node, this one also has the vertex count and the face count. And as the name suggests, this node will work on the vertices. So if I tab into the edit mode, press 1 for the vertex select, then you can see that each of these vertices is being surrounded by a particular number of vertices and faces. For example, this vertex that I selected over here is surrounded by 2 vertices. The first is this one and the second is this vertex. So in this case, the vertex count for this one will be equal to a value of 2. So if I go to the vertex count and connect it to the value A, also I'll change the value of B from 3 to 2. And now to extrude these vertices, having the vertex count equal to a value of 2, go to the extrude mesh node and change the mode from faces to vertices. Now if I come out of the edit mode, then you will notice that all these vertices having a vertex count equal to value of 2 are getting extruded like this. Then you also have the face count socket, which is used for comparing the number of faces surrounding a particular vertex. For example, if I select this vertex, then it is being shared with 2 faces. The first is this one and the second is this face. Similarly, if I select this vertex, then this is being surrounded by these 4 faces. So for this vertex, the face count will be equal to a value of 4. Therefore, if I take the face count socket and connect it to the value A, then if I change the value of B to 4 and go to the object mode again, then in this case, all these vertices are getting extruded, which are having the face count equal to the value of B, which is 4. Now moving ahead, let's understand the next topic of this chapter, which is the face is planar node. So for this, let's first remove these 2 nodes from here. Let's also remove the extrude mesh node and connect the group input to the group output. To add the face is planar node, press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the read category, select the is face planar node. Let's place it over here. Now the is face planar node or the face is planar node is simply used to check whether the triangles of the quad or the n-gon are planar or not. See, quad means any figure that has 4 sides and n-gon means any figure having n number of sides. Now to understand this node in detail, I'll go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad. I'll also turn on the annotate tool from here and select the annotate line. And yes, one more thing, whatever changes I am doing in the scene right now are only for making you understand the usage of this node, so you don't need to repeat these steps in your Blender file. Now if I draw a line like this, then now you can see that this quad is broken into 2 triangles, this one and this triangle. Now in the geometry nodes editor, if I press Shift plus A, then go to material and add the set material node, place it over here. Then to create the material, I'll go to the material properties and create a new material. Also, let's open the material preview mode, and now if I try to change the base color from here, and then if I remove the set material node from here by holding the Alt button and dragging it like this, then you can see that even though we are not using the set material node, but still we are having the material.004 applied, and this is because it is the first default material that we created in the material properties for this plane object. However, if I create another new material and change the base color to the blue color this time, then now to assign this particular material, we need to use the set material node. So I'll place it over here, select the material.005, and now the material will get applied. Now if I connect the planar socket to the selection in the set material node, then now this material.005 will only get applied to those faces which are planar, or in simple words, the is face planar node will check if the triangle of the quad or the n-gon is in the same plane as others or not. Now if I tab into the edit mode and select this half of the plane by selecting all these vertices like this, let's select these also, and now if I move them down by pressing G, Z and place it over here, then now you will notice that some of these faces are not having this material.005, but instead the default original material, which was this original material, is applied to these faces, and this is because of the is planar node. By connecting it to the selection socket, we now got this material.005 or the blue material applied to only those faces which were lying in a plane, or simply those faces which were having the same normal. In this case, all of these blue faces are having their normal in the positive Z axis for the top faces also, which are blue colored. However, for these orange faces, the normal or the perpendicular will be something like this, which is not in the same axis as compared to the other faces. Now this is face planar node also has this threshold value which controls the threshold after which the face will no longer be considered to be planar. To understand it in a better right away, if I slightly increase the threshold, then at a particular value, you will notice that this node is now considering these faces also to be planar and therefore applying the material.005 to them. So you can simply control the threshold to control the distance, after which the face will not be considered as planar. For now, I'll remove these annotations from here. Now let's come out of the edit mode and delete this plane. Now moving ahead, we'll be creating a kind of path or a bridge that will take us to the portal. For this, let's add a plane in the scene. Also, let's switch to the solid mode. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and add the plane, move it in the Y axis and place it over here. Also, let's move it slightly upwards in the Z axis, and then to change its scaling using the geometry nodes, click on the new button. Let's add the grid node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and in the primitives, select the grid node, place it over here, connect the mesh socket to the group output, and let's increase the size in the Y axis to something like 20 meters. Let's also increase the size in the X axis to something like 2 meters. Now to extrude the plane, let's add the extrude mesh node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, then in the operations, select the extrude mesh node, place it over here after the grid node. And now suppose you want to scale down the top face, then for this we'll be using the scale elements node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and in the operations, select the scale elements node. We'll place it over here. To scale down only the top face, I'll connect the top socket to the selection. Let's reduce the scale, and also in the extrude mesh node, turn off the individual. Now suppose you want to apply some distortion to the sides, then for this we'll add the set position node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry and in the right category, select the set position node, place it over here. Then to create the distortion, we'll connect the offset to the noise texture. So let's add it by pressing Shift plus A, then in the texture, select the noise texture, place it over here, connect the factor socket to the offset. To view the distortion effect properly, we also need to subdivide the mesh. So let's add the subdivide mesh node. So I'll press Shift plus A, then in the mesh, go to operations and select the subdivide mesh node. We'll place it over here. Let's also increase the levels. Now the distortion is being applied to all of the faces. However, we needed the distortion effect on all the faces except the top. For this, we'll be connecting the compare node to the selection socket in the set position node, and we'll be using it to control the faces where the noise texture is applied. So press Shift plus A, go to utilities, then in the math category, select the compare node. We'll place it over here, change the input type to vector, connect the result socket to the selection, and now to select all the faces except this top face, I'll change the operation to not equal. Then as we know that the normal of this top face is in the positive Z axis, so I'll go to the value of vector B and change the Z axis to 1. Then for the vector A, we'll be using the normal node. So let's add it over here, go to the geometry and in the read category, select the normal node. We'll place it over here, connect it to the vector A, and now the distortion is being applied to all of the faces whose normal is not in the positive Z axis. Also, right now the noise texture is being applied in all the three axes, meaning the X, Y and Z axis, and in order to apply the noise texture only in the X and Y axis, we'll be using the combine XYZ node. So press Shift plus A, go to utilities, then in the vector, select the combine XYZ node. We'll place it over here. Let's also connect the factor socket to the Y axis. Now let's reduce the scaling in the noise texture. So we'll reduce it to something like 1 or 1.5. Now moving ahead, suppose you want that this path or the bridge should have two materials. For the top, the material should be same as that of this portal, and the bottom, it should have the material that we added to the floor. Then for this, we'll be using the set material node along with the is face planar node. So press Shift plus A, go to material and select the set material node, place it over here. First of all, let's apply this material.003, which is the same material that we applied to this portal. Then for the distorted part, we'll create a duplicate of this node, place it over here and change the material to the material.001, which we use for the floor. Now in order to get this material.003, which is the purple colored material, only on the top face, we'll be using the is face planar node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and in the read category, select the is face planar node, place it over here, connect the planar socket to the selection, and now if I hide this floor by pressing H, then you can see that this green material which we applied to the floor is now applied to the sides of the portal. Now even though this green material is applied to the sides and the bottom, however, we still have some of the faces with this purple material of the portal. So to increase or decrease it, you can try to change the value of threshold. So if I increase it, the portal material will increase, and if I reduce it, the portal material will begin to disappear. Also, you can increase the levels in the subdivide mesh to 5 in order to get a much better look on the bridge. Now let's go to the solid mode again. Let's unhide the floor, and to place it properly in the scene, let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on the numpad, press G to move remove it and place it over here. Let's go to the side view now, move it in the y-axis like this, and now this is how our scene is looking right now. Now it's time to finalize the scene. So first of all, let's add the camera view at this position. So press Ctrl Alt 0 on the numpad, and we now have the camera over here. Then turn on the lock camera to view, and let's change the position like this. Let's also zoom in. Now we'll be doing some changes in the scene to make it ready for rendering. So first of all, go to the render view, and now we'll be creating a sky texture for the background. So for this, go to the shader editor from here, and with any of the objects selected, simply click here and change the shader type to world. Now we have this node system over here, using which we can control the materials applied to the world. To get the sky as the background, let's add the sky texture over here. So press Shift plus A, go to texture and select the sky texture, place it over here, connect the color socket to the color in the background. Now to make it look like realistic sky, first I'll increase the ozone value to 10, then we need to change the sun elevation to either a value close to 0 degrees or 180 degrees. Right now, I think that the sun elevation of something like 180 or 181 looks perfect. It's giving this look of a sunset at the background. Then coming back to the scene, now we'll be creating some fire drops, and for this, let's add a UV sphere in the scene. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, select the UV sphere, let's move it in the Z axis and place it over here. To focus only on the UV sphere, press the / button. Now tab into the edit mode to make it look like a droplet. First I'll select this top vertex, then press O to turn on the proportional editing, and if I press G to move it in the Z axis and move it like this, then now we have a shape which kind of looks like a droplet. To make it look even better, I'll turn off the proportional editing, and with only the top vertex selected, I'll move it in the Z axis like this, and now it looks perfect. So we'll come out of the edit mode. Also, to give it some material, I'll change the shader type to object, and we'll be assigning this material.001, which we assign to the floor. However, in this case, we need to make it look like fire drops, so we need to do some changes in the material also. So we'll create a duplicate of this material by clicking on this icon. So first of all, I'll increase the scaling in the noise texture to something like 6 or 7. Let's also change the color. So I'll select the second pointer, which is green color right now, and change the color to something like orange. And now this is how the fire drop looks now. Also, I think that we should reduce the scaling in the noise texture to something like 7 or maybe 7.5, and now it looks perfect. Now to use it as the raindrops throughout the scene, I'll first go to the solid mode, then press the / button to remove the focus from the raindrop, and now we'll be adding a cube in the scene. Then we'll convert it into volume and distribute these raindrops inside that volume. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and add the cube, tab into the edit mode, let's scale it up 20 times. Now come out of the edit mode and let's go to the geometry nodes editor from here. Click on the new button, and to convert it into volume, let's add the mesh to volume node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the operations, select the mesh to volume node. We'll place it over here. Now to distribute some points in the volume, let's add the distribute points in volume node. So press Shift plus A, go to point and select the distribute points in volume, place it over here. Let's reduce the density to something like 0.1. Then to add the raindrop as an instance on these points, we'll be using the instance on points node. So press Shift plus A, go to instances and select the instance on points. We'll place it over here, and for the instance object, we'll be using this raindrop, which is saved with the name sphere in the scene collection. So let's select the cube again and drag the sphere into the geometry nodes editor. Now I'll take the geometry socket and connect it to the instance. Let's reduce their scaling to something like 0.2. Also, let's reduce the density even further. So we'll keep it to something like 0.03, and now I think that it looks perfect. So let's go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad. Let's also turn on the render view, and now this is how our scene is looking. However, as you can clearly see, the number of these raindrops is still very high. So for this, I'll try to reduce this density in the mesh to volume node. So let's keep it to something like 0.1, or maybe let's slightly increase it to 0.3. Let's also increase the scaling in all the 3 axes to a value of something like 0.35. Let's also change the rotation in the y-axis in order to give the raindrops a slightly tilted look. Now let's also do some changes in the material by going to the shader editor. Let's select the original raindrop from the scene collection, and in the shader editor, first of all, I'll break this node connection in between the factor socket and the alpha in the principal BSDF. So hold down the control button, right click and drag like this. Let's also increase the scaling in the noise texture to something like 14 or 15. Then to give it a glowing effect, we'll increase the roughness to a value of something close to 0.8 or 0.9. Now our scene almost looks ready. However, we also need to fix the rotation of this path or the bridge that we created. So go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad. Let's move it in the y-axis like this. Then go to the side view, and we need to bring it down as well. So press G, Z and move it down like this. Let's go to the camera view again. Let's select the portal along with this fireball that we created, and let's move them in the Z axis upwards like this, and then left click to finalize. Let's go to the render view again, and now this is how the final scene is looking. If you want, you can do some changes in the material of the central fireball that we created. For example, I think that we should remove the connection between the factor actor socket and the alpha, so let's remove it. Previously we connected both of them together in order to replace the black color in the texture with a transparent look, but right now this material is giving a much better look. Then if you want, you can also try to change the material of the floor. For example, in this green material we can change the color to something else like the red color or any other color of your choice. So try to do these changes in the materials. Also try to change the parameters in the geometry nodes editor like the extrusion, the noise texture. Also, if you remember, in the previous chapter we animated this fireball from the frame number 1 to the frame number 120. So you can try to create an animation with this, and this brings us to the end of chapter number 49 of the Blender Master course. So our next chapter will be the chapter number 50, Geometry Nodes, part 1 of creating a lighting scene. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next one.